Shri Sujit Kumar ji.
Why? Why, John?
Please, please.
Thank you, sir, for permitting
no
me
cross-talk,
to
no
speak
cross-talk.
on price rise, a very critical issue facing our country. Sir, at the outset, I would like to acknowledge that these are difficult times not only for India, but for other countries as well. I quite understand and appreciate the predicament in which the finance minister is, honorable finance minister is. She has to manage the economy in the post-COVID scenario. And we have the Ukraine-Russia conflict. We have supply chain constraints emanating from China. So I do definitely understand the situation. Sir, I would like to quote from an all-time favorite classic of mine, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.
Yes.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the summer of hope. It was the winter of despair. Now, sir, why is there spring of hope?
Please.
Because, sir, I firmly believe that the India growth story is intact. I firmly believe that we are poised to better growth, higher growth, thanks to the people of this country, thanks to their hard work, their resilience, and their creativity. Yesterday, in the Lok Sabha, Honorable Finance Minister, in a reply, mentioned that there is zero probability of India having recession or stagflation. And I share her optimism. Sir, despite this slowdown, we are still the fastest growing economy amongst the large economies. One might dispute about the numbers, whether it's 7.4, 6.8, 8.2, but still, sir, our growth is much better than most other economies, including that of China. Our exports have crossed $500 billion, a record high. Our GDP, government debt to GDP ratio is in the 80s, whereas for most countries, including US, France, most of the developed countries, it's in the 3 digits. So, sir, there are many reasons for hope, and due to paucity of time, I'll not have the opportunity to get into all of those regions. But, sir, I'll fail in my duty as a parliamentarian if I do not highlight the concerns of crores of Indian citizens who are today crying because of the burden of inflation or burden of price rise. And I promise you, sir, I'll speak only about price rise and inflation. I'll not get into foreign exchange reserves and other jargons of economics. Sir, today, the wholesale WPI, wholesale price index, WPI, for June 2022 is 15.18%, which was 12.07% in June of 2021. This is an almost 30-year high. Sir, CPI, Consumer Price Index, which impacts common citizen the most, remains at 7% for the third consecutive month, which is higher than the RBI's comfort of 6%. So, for a common man, CPI, WPI have no meaning. She is only concerned about her monthly budget. And in the CPI, when the food basket is 40% of the weightage, if the CPI inflation goes up, then it is the Indian housewife's kitchen that bears the brunt of this high inflation, sir.
Absolutely.
Sir, I'll give some examples. Price of Banaspati oil on 31st of May this year was 26.6% higher than the same day in 2021. Price of wheat was 14.3% higher on 31st of May. I'm talking about 31st of May 2022 compared to 31st of May 2021. Same for sugar, same for mustard oil, etc., sir. Even domestic cooking coal today has crossed almost 1100 rupees. Petrol prices have gone beyond 120 rupees in most Indian cities. Sir, we all agree that price rise or inflation affects the poor and the middle class the most. Sir, I'll read out a report. I'll talk about a report from Oxfam titled Profiteering from Pain that concludes that every 30 hours a billionaire is born while nearly 1 million people are pushed into extreme poverty because of inflation. The system is such that inflation, particularly in a post-COVID scenario, makes the poor suffer
Please,
and the rich
silence,
gain.
please. Silence.
Sir,
Please.
sir, today I had the opportunity to ask a supplementary question today morning during question hour on the prevalence of dubious loan apps. And I gave the example of these apps, loan apps, digital loan apps having connections to China, and how there have been 1.5 lakh downloads in the state of Odisha alone. I do not have the figures for the entire nation, but this tells us how people have now started borrowing money to meet the monthly budget. I'm afraid, sir, people will get into a debt trap if this continues. If the price rise continues, bulk of India's middle class and poor will get into a debt trap. Yes. Sir, this inflation is killing the dreams of our youth, particularly when their income is falling, when they do not have better job opportunities, when there are no livelihood opportunities. Honorable Member Bijay Sai Reddy ji spoke about Article 38, and I agree with him. Sir,
सर ये क्या हो रहा है सर?
Please. Please.
sir,
आप senior members हैं.
though Article 38 of the Constitution is part of the directive principles of state policy and is not justifiable by the court, I think it is the bounden duty of the government to tame inflation. Because, in my view, and most economists agree, that this inflation is caused not by demand. It's not demand driven. It's not because of rise in wage, but it's largely because of supply constraints. And, sir, here I would like to bring to the attention of the House a social media post by Department of Economic Affairs at Ministry of Finance in April 2022, and it states, and I quote, "Evidence of consumption patterns suggests that inflation in India has had less impact on lower income groups than higher income groups," unquote. Sir, can it be more bizarre and callous than this? All of us know, that inflation affects the poor and the middle class. But this social media post tries to portray the picture that it's not the case, it affects the rich class. Sir, as if the existing inflation was not enough, now there is an additional burden of 5% of GST on many packaged items of food like paneer, curd, atta. Sir, I agree that this was not the decision of Government of India. Rather, this was the decision of the GST Council. But, sir, and GST Council has representation from all the states, I do concede. But, sir, wasn't this hike made by the GST Council on the recommendation of the group of ministers? So, should the group of ministers not have recommended to the GST Council that this is not the opportune time to have a hike on these packaged products?
Honorable Member, please conclude.
Sir, give me 2 more minutes, sir. Sir, Honorable Member Shivaji spoke about the nutritional impact on child. And this is very close to my heart, sir, so please, I ask for your indulgence. Sir, the inflation, the price rise has had a direct impact on the midday meal schemes. Sir, the schools, government schools, they get 5.42 rupees for each student from class 1 to 5, and rupees 8.10 for each student from class 1 to 5, and from 6 to 8, it's 8.10. Sir, we all know, can a meal be served at rupees 5 or rupees 8? We all know that a basic plate of dal, rice, and vegetable curry will cost at least 15 rupees. So, sir, what is the impact of price rise now? The quality of food served, the quality of midday meal has significantly got diluted, and our children, the children of this country, are now getting served substandard food, low quality food. Sir, many times, even in this August, sir, 1 more minute, sir, even in this August House, I have argued vociferously about the need to implement Kothari Commission's recommendation, which was made way back in the 60s. The need to spend at least 6% of our GDP on education. We are half of that. We are currently spending 3% of our GDP on education. But at least the least we can do, sir, is to offer good quality food, nutritious food to our children as part of the midday meal scheme. Sir, time and again, Honorable Prime Minister has appealed to citizens of this country to come forward, to make sacrifices. People willingly made sacrifices. They gave up the gas subsidy. They made sacrifices during the COVID. But, sir, I think it is imperative that the government takes resolute action, particularly on the supply side, to tame inflation. Sir, the tax burden on petroleum product needs to be rolled back. Sir, MSP, we have time and again, my party Biju Janata Dal has time and again argued about the need to implement MS Swaminathan Commission on MSP, which has not been done by the government.
Honourable member, you'll have to
PDS has to be
conclude.
strengthened. Sir, last
Time is already
sir,
out.
10 seconds more. PDS has to be strengthened. Sir, the cartel has to be, dismantled. Competition has to be promoted. And finally, sir, we all know that we cannot have a sustainable economy. We cannot have an inclusive economy unless we take care of price rise and inflation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.